Good morning and good evening, everyone. Welcome back. Welcome to Cloud and DevOps Batch 57. So, today is the session one of our DevOps with AWS Realtime training. Since yesterday is a kind of demo session, we didn't cover much on the technical aspects. Instead, we have discussed on what exactly are we going to cover in order to become a cloud engineer or a DevOps engineer or a cloud DevOps engineer or a platform engineer or a site reliability engineer. What is the strategy that we need to follow in order to learn something that is high demand in the industry rather than wasting time on unwanted things. Okay. And we have also gone through the entire roadmap on what industry needs and then how much are we close to the industry needs is something we have extensively discussed. And here are the list of tools on AWS Cloud along with the open source category that we are going to learn as a part of the training we have discussed. Also, we have discussed in order to become a cloud and DevOps engineer, the very first thing that we should have, okay, we should know is the prerequisite is so the prerequisite for that is okay, learning an operating system, which is a command line operating system. In that category, Linux is a top notch. And again, in the Linux, there are hundreds of varieties of Linux. Which one do we need to learn is also something we are going to learn today. But on a high level, we discussed that in operating systems, there are two varieties, a command line operating system and a graphical user operating system. And those are the two things that we learned. And also we have seen what is a data center, why data center is needed, and in data center, what are we going to organize? In order to start a data center, what are the prerequisites that you need to follow? Okay, it's not just like you start a data center. There are some prerequisites that you need to follow, right? So these are the requirements that you need to follow if you want to start a data center, right? So you need to go through a private place procurement, invest in procuring the hardware, temperature maintenance in order to reduce the wear and tear of the product, and then 24 by 7 electricity, 24 by 7 network, 24 by 7 maintenance, and network storage hardware team. However, it's a capital intensive task. Before even you release something to the public, you should have millions of dollars to keep the infrastructure up. And also when you're investing on infrastructure, you should also have a plan to do a hardware refresh. Also in what is meant by hardware refresh is also something we have seen. Also, in applications, there are two varieties of applications. One is client-based application and another is web-based application. That's also something we have discussed. Client-based application is nothing but applications that are installed or that needs to be installed to do its job. When you say client, which is nothing but your local computer, you need to have the client-based information, then only things are going to work. That is something we have seen. Also, web-based application. Web-based applications are something just like your flipkart.com, facebook.com, twitter.com, where you are going to install the applications on somewhere, on some servers. Server is nothing but a big computer, which will be accessed by thousands of users over the browser. Okay, from the matter of your browser, they should be able to access the applications over the web. When you say web, I'm referring to the internet. And here is the piece that I'm interested about. In training, we focus only on this because the entire market is around this. So it's imperative we need to learn about this. Okay, because there is no point learning about the client-based applications, which is not really much used. Okay, so the people use cloud and all such open source tools to speed up the delivery of the web-based application. Even in our training, our application is 100% on the top of the web-based application. Okay. Also, we have seen what is an SDLC, why SDLC is needed, what is cloud, why we need cloud, and when this cloud came up into picture. And in the space of cloud, who is the major player? AWS Cloud or Google Cloud or Azure Cloud? Which one is a big player? And again, when you're learning anything, you should also understand how the business operate. Okay. In cloud, there are three business models as a part of the revenue generation and based on the type of services they offer. So leaving about this on-prem is nothing but on-prem or on-premises or data center. You're representing that you own a private place and you're maintaining your infrastructure, application, data, network, everything. Okay, we have a better control on this. Obviously, when you compare to rest of the three, it will be little inexpensive, but the maintenance and it's a capital intensive thing. But rest of the three are not capital intensive thing. So in cloud, the operation models are infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. Okay, so we also discussed it's a shared responsibility model where in the infrastructure as a service you pay less because you are owning some responsibility, In the platform as a service, you spend more when compared to what you spend in infrastructure as a service, because the cloud provider is managing most, then you're just running your application and just carrying up the data. In the SaaS, everything, including application data, everything the provider takes care. All you do is you just use the software. I have given an example like Office 365, OneNote, and I have also given example like Outlook, and I have also given example to use PUBG game. Every one of us play PUBG or some games over the mobile, right? They are also SaaS offerings. Okay, they are offering game as a okay. That's something we have discussed. Also, we have discussed that in cloud and DevOps, the reason why there are huge number of jobs in the industry is because of the transition. And in the cloud, you don't have to hire highly experienced engineers in different segments, because rather than you focusing on things that are already maintained well by someone, why you need to invest again? So if anyone comes across any hardware refresh, or if any company wants to harvest the offerings from the cloud, they plan their infrastructure. But again, you never see any company where 100% of their infrastructure is on cloud. Okay, that is inevitable. There are some mission critical operations or mission critical applications where they do not want to run on the top of the cloud, or cloud is not supporting those applications. So maybe at the time, or if they already procured the license that are going to work for the next 5 to 10 years, they don't want to disturb the ecosystem. Okay, and companies, how companies think is, um, if something comes into the market new, since that is famous, I want to go ahead and I have to use it. No one thinks that way. Okay, no one thinks that way. It's not like whenever a product is released, oh, this is a new product, I need to use it. No one thinks that. It's all about how much you that product is good to you. For example, a product might be good to me for my business, but that might not be the same for other companies. Okay, so if I'm saying Linux, or if I'm saying cloud, I'm saying in a term of 100, majority. Okay, yesterday someone has reached me. You said that all the companies uses cloud, but my company is not using cloud. So I'm saying yes. If your company wants to use, they can, based on the use case and how important it is something that is. Okay, so this is something we have extensively discussed, and also we have discussed what is a waterfall model, software development lifecycle. So laptop software development lifecycle, waterfall model versus agile methodology is something we have discussed. And also, guys, every one of you, you would have used the meeting link, right? So for example, how can I access the session recordings? Okay, every one of you would have accessed the got the session recordings. In case if you didn't get the session recording, whatever the meeting link that you have used today to join, on the same meeting link, okay, on the same meeting link, you should be able to, okay. Okay, and if you see this in the same meeting link, yesterday's session is recorded. Or you can also find something like, okay, github.com. You just come here. B56 Cloud DevOps is my previous batch. Okay, so every one of you will get a link like this where you can find all the meeting links, everything here. So right after every session, in less than 15 to 20, less than 1 hour, you go and check this. You should be able to see the session recording. This is the playlist. You come here and you try to click this. You can find all the session recordings here itself. Okay, you don't have to wait for me that I'm going to send the session recording. Everything will be accessible here. This is my previous batch. So likewise, we are also going to create a repository. Okay, every one of you can bookmark it. Okay, I just sent it to everyone over the message. Okay, so you can bookmark this. If you could check on your message of Zoom, which I have sent, you should be able to see that. All right. I have just shared the link on the same Zoom chat. In case if you didn't receive it, that's totally fine. Okay, I'm gonna email you that. Okay, this link might not work because I'm yet to create, but once you create it, you should be able to see everything. Okay, this is for my batch 56, where I can find this. And for example, the whatever the board that I am using, you can also access the board like this. Just you need to paste it. You should also be able to view the board. Okay, and likewise we are going to share everything. Okay, whatever the documentation that we need to use, everything will be shared. Okay, so whatever the content that I'm going to share, we'll try to document everything and we'll publish with you so that it will be in a single place where you can walk through in a single place. Okay. And also we have discussed what is cloud, what is DevOps, and what is the job market for cloud and DevOps in a very detailed approach in yesterday's session. Okay, with a live example, this is one of the good example where I keep on used to demonstrate. And also I have clearly mentioned, if you want to become a cloud or a DevOps engineer, the first important thing that we need to start with is Linux. And the course is also designed keeping that in mind. So all you need to do is we just need to start learning Linux. Okay, Linux is a command line operating system, but why do I need to learn is I have clearly noted this is something that's important because all the tools are designed keeping the open source, keeping the Linux in mind. Again, I have coined a new word called as open source. What is this open source? We'll talk about it. Okay, so I quickly want to ask you to, before I proceed, I quickly want to ask you if you have any questions or anything. Let me check the chat window. Hmm. Let me check the chat window. How applications are controlled? How applications are controlled by Cloud DevOps? Can you explain more? So that's a very big question. How applications are controlled by Cloud DevOps? Applications are deployed typically on the top of cloud if yours is a cloud-based infrastructure. And DevOps is a methodology where you can speed up the procedure of deploying the application from development environment to the production environment using the automated approach. So not just one DevOps is going to manage the entire infrastructure or entire organization. Again, within the organization, you'll have multiple teams which are going to manage multiple applications. So the question is a very broad answer, but it's in a nutshell that you can understand. Again, before I proceed, I just wanna give an update that the session timings are not going to be changed and the session timings are going to be same Monday to Saturday morning 6 to 7:30 and there won't be any changes in it. And for example, if you are joining from States, Sunday to Friday 7:30 to 9 o'clock are the session timings, and whatever the meeting link that you're using, that remains the same and there won't be any changes in the meeting link till further notice. Okay, I repeat, there won't be any changes further till further notice, and the session timings are going to remain the same Monday to Saturday morning 6 to 7:30. All right. Can someone please confirm me? Am I audible? Can anyone raise your hand? So we will make a GitHub repository of our own. Yes, Vedant will tell you how to do that, what to do that. Okay, because you'll use that GitHub repository to demonstrate your work. Okay, just like for photographers, how they maintain their portfolio by using their Instagram profile. Similarly, us as a DevOps and a cloud engineer, or when you're in the software industry, typically you demonstrate your work or whatever you know by demonstrating your work on the GitHub profile. So obviously, we need to have a GitHub profile, and that is not for applying jobs. Okay, GitHub profile is to demonstrate what you know. Okay, it's just like a portfolio for your work. All right. Okay, and I have also given a quick intro on how to access the content. And yeah, so let's get started. Let's get started. So first thing, we need to learn Linux. So what is Linux? First, if you want to learn something, you should know why. Okay, first, what is Linux? Okay, so Linux is, if someone says you Linux is an OS, that's an incorrect statement. Linux is a kernel. Okay, then what is a kernel? Kernel is a first layer of the any operating system that acts as an interface between your hardware and the OS. Okay, if someone says you creating or building or developing an operating system is a very tough job, and the reason for it is this, because it's not like an overnight job where you can just create something, because you are going to write something core to the entire operating system that plays a very vital role in interacting between the operating system and the actual hardware. Okay, so in the backend, all of your actions would be done by using the hardware, and hardware get the actions done by the instructions that are being passed by a software. Okay, so Linux is a kernel, which is an open source kernel. Again, I'm using a new term called as open source. What is an open source? I'm gonna teach you very soon. Okay, so yeah. Okay, so kernel is the first layer of operating system, and it's one of the most complicated piece of any operating system. So, okay, and that is the first piece of operating system that we're gonna write. And as I clearly mentioned, 99%, I'm not exaggerating, of the enterprise applications runs on Linux. So you cannot escape from it. Okay. Now, I'll ask you another important question. Okay. I'm just switching one topic. Okay. But there is a relevancy for it. Who is the richest person in the world for a very long time? Okay. So who was, who, not who is, who was. Just don't say the current trend. Just say when you're a kid, whom you know was the richest person for a very long time. Anyone? Anyone who is interested? I could see Sumit, Vishwa, Aravind. Anyone? Ashifa, Karin,
Bill Gates,
obviously. Why? Anyone? I'll say a few reasons.
because he owns Microsoft.
Obviously, but how Microsoft makes money? Okay. So the reason why Bill Gates became a billionaire is just because of the way how Windows was designed. Okay. So the reason is it's all because of how Microsoft has designed the Windows operating system. So it's all because of It's all because of how Windows licensing works. Okay. So for example, okay, uh, you have a Windows computer. Let's assume you're having a Windows Home Edition of computer. Okay. And you're learning Windows 11 Home Edition. Okay. Again, in Windows, there are multiple varieties, but I'm talking about Home Edition, Windows Home Edition. Okay. So if you want to use Windows Home Edition, which is nothing but your personal computer, okay, you're saying Microsoft, I am using the operating system for my personal purpose, Home Edition. It's not it's not something that you're gonna make money out of it. You, as an independent user, want to use the computer, and for that you're gonna use Windows Home. For example, for that, if you're paying 5,000 rupees, I'm just taking in things in rupees, not INR, 500 INR. For example, if the same operating system for the same computer, if a company, if a company like IBM or TCS, if they want to use, they don't use Home Edition, right? They use Pro Edition. Okay, that means this is for the professional use. That means you are making money from the my device. Okay, then you need to pay a different license. So usually they pay more. It will be 2 to 3 times more. Let's assume it's 15,000. Okay, and if you pay Microsoft license once for a user, it will be lifetime. Even if Windows 11 releases Windows 12, it will be a free upgrade for them, right? But if the same Windows edition is being used in an enterprise, it's not the same way. Once you buy a license, for every 3 years, you need to renew the license. It's not like a company has bought the license, they can use this operating system forever. No, you need to use it. You need to renew the license. And that's the reason in corporate, you don't see any of the computer that is 3 years old. Okay. What they do is after using 3 years, they'll just send it to the pre-owned. Okay. But for a home user, it's not like that. Okay, let's assume, okay, as I mentioned yesterday, operating systems are of two types. Client-based operating system, that means an operating system which is created for you to use on your computer. And another set of operating system is a server-based operating system or a server. For example, you are having an application that is running on a server. So you need to have a Windows server. Okay, Windows Server operating system. Again, in Windows Server operating system, there are 2K16, 2K18, 2K20, 2K22, like that they are there. Let's assume the operating system version is 2K20. Okay, just like Windows 10, Windows 11, okay, Windows 11 Pro. Similarly, in the server editions, it will be like that. And as I mentioned, a client computer is something, or a computer that you're using is designed for a user to use. But these are not created for one person to use. Here on the top of it, you are going to run n number of applications. Okay, n number of users. Okay, n number of users would be accessing this, because a server is something which is created to employ n number of users, right? And the licensing is, okay, it's not like you bought a license, you paid license and you can use it, right? So this licensing is based on, you carefully observe this licensing. Okay. For example, if there are 100 users that are accessing, or 100 user accounts that you have created on this server, then you need to pay licensing that way. Okay, it's not like, for example, in my company, I am using 30 users. I have 30 users are using, or 30 users are created on this server. I pay 30 licenses, even though the operating system is one. And if in your company, if you are using 1,000 users on the server, you need to pay 1,000 user licensing. Okay, so that is one of the reason why why operating system of Windows is a little expensive. Okay, but the other operating system don't work that way. Okay, and if you go ahead and try to see what is the licensing model, Windows Server licensing cost, you can go and check. Again, this is a data center edition. The pricing is showing in US dollar. You can see the price is $3,000, and what it says, this is based on the number of CPUs that you're using. Okay, listen to this carefully. It's also not just because, not based on how many cores. Okay, for example, if you are using a small computer, you'll pay less for the same operating system. For example, if you are using a big server with higher number of CPUs, and you also pay licensing based on the number of CPUs if it is a data center edition. Okay, this is one variety. Okay, for example, you come here and try to look at their official page. And if you look at this, and if you are going with the data center edition, licensing is based on the core, based on the number of CPUs. Okay, and this is also based on the number of CPUs, standard edition. But if you are going with the essential edition of Windows Server, they are talking about small businesses up to 25 users and 50 devices. That means if your company is having less than 25 users, and if you are going to use it for 50 devices, then the licensing cost would be different. Can you see this? The same operating system, but for these guys, they're charging 6,000, and for these guys, they're charging 500. Okay, so their licensing is completely different. And that's one of the reason why Microsoft has more money. Okay, so yeah, almost all the companies gives Windows computer as their basic computer, but not all companies, major companies, but the money they make through licensing is really, really high. Okay, that is the licensing model of Windows. But what if you want to run an application that needs 100 servers? What if you are a startup, you're a bunch of students who want to start an application, who want to build an application, and who is ready to invest at 10 lakhs or 20 lakhs? And if someone if you get an angel investor who is ready to invest 20 to 30 lakhs on your idea, it is to spend on the top of the human resources, not just because on the hardware. So the 20-30 lakhs won't be sufficient just to buy the Windows hardware. So that's the reason almost all the startups, almost all the new softwares that you see would be designed keeping the Linux in mind. Why? because you don't have to pay. Okay, so instead of going with the proprietary operating systems, instead if you go with an operating system which is free to use, you don't have to pay anyone. So majority of the softwares would be designed that way, and that's the reason you take any software which is very famous, it would be designed on the top of Linux. Okay, so Linux we learn like a cloud and DevOps engineer. Linux itself is an ocean. It takes 6 months to 1 year of time to become a Linux engineer. But our goal is not to become a Linux engineer. Our goal is to become a cloud and DevOps engineer. So we are going to learn Linux and cloud like a DevOps engineer. Okay, we are going to learn what is needed for a cloud and DevOps engineer to get started, not like a certified Linux engineer. Okay, I mentioned it very clear. Okay, so yeah, and just to advance on the topic, in the operating systems, there are two types of operating systems are available, and one type of operating system is GUI, which stands for graphical user interface. What are the options that you want? Graphical user interface. So for example, if you want to see the list of processes that are running on your computer, if you are using Windows Task Manager, okay, you type Task Manager, you will see some images like this, right? Saying that how many processes are running, what is the performance of it, how many applications are running, and if you want to kill any process, you'll right click and you'll kill it. You can see how much each process is running, 7%, 48%, right? You can see all of it. But similarly, if you are using a Linux machine, okay, you use some commands to do that. Okay, use some command. It also does the same thing. Don't worry about the screen, how many these options are there, what exactly it is. It also shows you the same thing, but using a command. Okay, and these type of things are referred as a command line operating system. Okay, so graphical user interface, the classic example of it is Windows. Okay, you create a file, you shut down a server, you see the list of processes that are running, everything you click buttons. Okay, you'll have the options, you'll search for the option, you'll use it. But in the CLI, command line operating system or a command line interface, it's not like that. So in the command line operating system, you deal everything using commands. Okay, the major advantage of using a command line operating system is you use less resources. Okay, for example, you come here, you create a server, and the server is having 8 CPUs and 32 GB of RAM. Okay, and if it is having 512 GB of disk. Okay, if you install a operating system which is GUI based operating system, the size of the operating system is very, very high. And out of these 8 CPUs, okay, 2 to 3 CPUs will be used just by operating system itself, and almost 4 to 6 GB of memory would be used by the operating system itself. And out of 512 GB, almost 160 GB will be utilized by the operating system itself. Okay, that means out of the 100%, 40% of the resources are already utilized by the operating system that you have installed. Okay, graphical user interfaces always consumes higher resources. If it is just one or computer or two computer, that's fine. But in organization, you will be using thousands of servers. So if you start employing a graphical user interface, it's going to cost you a lot. Instead, if you give the same CLI based operating system, okay, like your Linux, okay, if the same server is having 8 CPU, the operating system might just take less than 1 CPU. Okay, and for example, if you say this, it would take just less than 1 GB of RAM. And you can even install an operating system with even less than 20 GB. Okay, and even with less than 8 GB, you can install an operating system. So keeping the resource perspective in mind, command line operating system is a killer in saving money. So, and that's also one of the reason you people prefer to go with CLI. And in CLI, majorly you don't have to pay anyone if you want to use. Okay, that's one of the reason why people prefer to go with command line operating system. In the space of command line operating system, again, Microsoft is the one which is most famous. So in 1970s and 75s, when Microsoft has started, uh, they introduced the first CLI operating system of its kind, named as MS-DOS. Even now, a lot of applications, I mean, it is not still active, this project, but a lot of applications that you see in the government segment or any secret projects, you see this MS-DOS. Okay, it's no longer supported, but Microsoft gives extended support, and this is CLI based. But again, this is not up to the date. It's no longer there in the industry. Okay, and the second thing, around 1980s and 85s, another operating system called as Unix came up. Unix is one of the most robust operating system. When I joined in 2011, I restarted a server which is continuously up and continuously running from 15 years without even a restart and without even a patch. So there were some group of engineers who designed an application and deployed or running on the top of a Unix machine, and they left it and the application was running. No one know what is it is running. It is doing some job, but it worked seamlessly for 15 years, and we got some issue. We need to restart. Everyone were highly panicked because we don't know that. The reason why I'm talking is because I would like to demonstrate the stability of the Unix operating system. So if you want to use a Unix operating system, you need to have the own hardware. Okay, when I say Unix, it's a software OS plus hardware. Okay, it's a operating system plus hardware. It was mostly introduced in 1980s or 85s. So each and every company has their own edition of each and every company has their own edition of Linux. Okay, not Linux, Unix. So if I want to talk about it, and this is something which was introduced in 1980s. And if you're talking about Unix, there are multiple varieties of Unix. And if I'm talking about the software plus hardware, it is just like an iPhone. If you want to use iPhone, you need to have, if you want to use an iOS, you need to have an iPhone. If you want to use Mac OS, you need to have a MacBook. That means here the software and the hardware is being supplied by the same vendor. If it is Windows, you can buy the operating system. You can either use the Lenovo laptop, Dell laptop, Sony laptop, or any computer of your choice. That means the same operating system, which is designed by someone, can be run on the top of someone else hardware, right? But Unix is not like that. If you want to run a Unix operating system, you need to procure the hardware from the same vendor. Okay, so each and every company has their own versions of Linux. So IBM AIX is very famous. Okay, so for example, IBM AIX is also a classic example of Unix. Okay, so IBM AIX. Okay, so IBM's AIX. AIX is a Unix which is from IBM. And if you want to run this AIX Unix operating system, you cannot run on any hardware. You need to run on the top of the IBM Power hardware. It's a very costly hardware, by the way. Okay, and again, in the same line, if you want to run another important thing is HP Unix, HP UX. It's also called as HP Unix or HP UX. It's also called as HP UX, means HP Unix. It's also a very famous project from the company called as HP. And if you want to run the HP based Unix, you need to have the HP hardware. Okay, but this is one of the most stable, most known stable command line operating system in the world till date, but all of them are dead. Okay, and so IBM has withdrawn their support, but you could see some companies they are still using Unix, but they are almost dead. Okay, it's almost IBM even given out of date for this. It's almost outdated. HP Unix, it's also outdated way long back. Okay, and so no doubt, Unix is one of the most interesting and most reliable hardware. And the reason why it gives you better performance is whenever you see any operating system or any software is developed by the same person who has developed the hardware, they have some better integration. So for example, you take iPhone. Okay, and if you want to use iPhone and the operating system the only operating system that you can use is iOS, right? Okay, and if you take iPhone, the number of resources, like for example, it would just have 8 GB memory and just 8 CPU or 2 CPU, but still it gives better performance. Have you ever seen iPhone getting hung? No. For example, you take any other phones, okay, Android phones. They say I'm having 32 GB RAM or 64 GB disk and octa-core processor. Still they fail. The reason is operating system is from someone, hardware is from someone. So you will never get a better integration. The only reason why iPhone operates better, even though with lesser resources, is just because the operating system and the hardware is being developed by the same person. Okay, it's developed by the same company. So whenever if both of them are procured from the same company, it always has the integration advantage. Okay, so that is another important advantage whenever you're using something which is close to uh, where both of them are offered from the same place. But however, so if someone has to use your product, definitely it has to be user friendly. If it is if it is not user friendly, others cannot accommodate. Okay, so since it is very much costly, only colleges and universities used to use this Linux. Only colleges. How to get rid of it? Since it's super costly, only enterprises.
What is the 14 when you can have the 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and the 20? Anything maybe after the 14, I wish that
Anyone who is speaking, Karin, can you go on mute?
maybe.
Thank you. Since it's super costly, only enterprises and universities at the time were able to accommodate this. Okay, but uh, a nice person called as a very super interesting guy who is a college graduate around 1985. He decided, I think this is super cool and everyone wants to use, but this is very costly. I want to create something that is similar to Unix, which should be operating using command line. And at the same time, it should be free to use. Here, you have to buy the hardware, you need to buy the license, and you need to buy the operating system license, and you need to activate the CPU. Then you can use. And you need to buy the hardware from the same person. That means he can decide the price of the product. But there is an engineer called as Linus Torvalds who thought it is not fair, it is super costly. He's still there. Okay, Linus Torvalds. If we are having a job in the IT right now, because of the multiple applications, okay, because of multiple applications and parallel developments that are happening in the industry, it's all because of this guy's initiative. And he's the person behind the development of Git. He's the person behind the development of Linux. So he started a project. He started an open source project called as, okay, again, I'm using a new word called as open source. I'll explain that. This is the third time I'm using today. He started an open source project and he named that project as Linux. Okay, as I mentioned, Linux is not an operating system. It is a kernel, which is the first layer of any command line operating system. Okay, so he want to develop a project which should be open source. That means you don't have to pay anyone if you want to use the product. Okay, so let me try to explain that. And then he simply don't want to copy what we have on Unix. Definitely Linux is being developed by taking Unix as an inspiration, but it should have the features of GNUX. GNUX stands for generally not Unix. Okay, GNUX stands for generally not Unix. It's not, no, it's generally not Unix. That means they want to develop something that is that should look like Unix, but it should not be Unix. Okay, a lot of people think that Linux is a copy of Unix. No. Even the commands, whatever the commands, that some sort of commands would be same, but fundamentally they are all rewritten. Okay, so they're all rewritten. All right. Now they are all generally not Unix, and they want to develop an operating system, okay, with the Linux as a kernel. Okay. So can anyone tell me what is an open source project? Anyone? What is open source? Anyone who is interested can answer. Okay, I want answers. Let's try to make it more interactive. Anyone who wish to speak? Anyone? Anyone? I'm lowering all your hands. Anyone who is interested can raise your hand and talk. Yeah, Karin, Arvind.
Which doesn't require an license.
Okay, no concept of licensing. Okay, right? There is no licensing. Okay, but this might not be true. You might have something called a subscription. Okay, we'll go there. No concept of licensing. Okay, anyone else? Anyone? Anyone? Karin, Vinod.
It's, I think open source means it's free. Anybody can get it from the internet.
Okay, free to use. Let's try to consider that way.
Uh-huh.
Okay, free to use.
Access to code as well.
Yes, the code is open. Okay, for example, if you want to update any changes or if you want to create your own version of Windows, you cannot do that because the code is proprietary and the code is not open. But Linux, or when you're talking something as an open source, okay, when you're referring something as an open source, the fundamental property of the open source is there should be no licensing. That means you don't have to pay anyone if you want to use the code. Okay, that means there is no concept of licensing. Anyone can use, and the code is 100% open. That means I have designed a Linux and I published it, but your company wants to create your own flavor of Linux as per your requirement. You can take that code, you can change it as per your requirement, you can add the features or you can trim the features, and then can make it as, for example, I can release an Linux saying that DevOps Linux OS. So Facebook has their own version of Linux. Google has their own version of Linux. Twitter has their own version of Linux. Take any company, they can take the code and they can change it as per the requirement. Okay. And as I mentioned, there is no concept of licensing and anyone can contribute. Okay. For example, if you want to add or delete, when someone says it's an open source project, that means all the interested engineers who are enthusiastic to develop the project can contribute the project without paying or without expecting anything, with an intention to give the project for free, anyone who wants to use. And there should be, for example, if Karin has started an open source project, and if I'm taking the, I'm cloning the code and I'm trying to rebrand it, and I cannot sell it in the form of licensing, or I cannot keep the code as public. I cannot keep the code as private because I took the code from you. The community guideline is you need to keep it open. Okay. Anyone can use, anyone can contribute. But only the valid changes will be accepted. That is another thing. Okay. Even after customizing, the code, it still has to be kept open. Okay, the code still, it has to be kept open. Okay, so this is the main term called as open source. Whatever the tools that we are going to learn, 100% of them are open source. So when you're using open source tools, you don't have to pay anyone. So you can directly use and can use it. And whenever you're having issues or whenever you're having any challenges, the community, open source community, will answer your questions. The code is 100% open. Anyone can use it. Okay, and the biggest project in the world till date is the project that is started by Linus Torvalds, which is Linux. Linux is one of the biggest open source project till date. Okay, there are billions of users for Linux. Okay, and it's till date, it is still an open source project. Okay, and because of this open source nature, lot of people have cloned the code and they created their own version. Okay, they have created their own versions of Linux. But if everyone is creating their own version of Linux, there will be multiple varieties of Linux. Which version should I learn? Okay, let's try to understand that. In Linux, there are, since it is an open source, unlike Windows, whatever is released by Microsoft, there are 300 plus officially recognized flavors. Okay, there are 300 plus official distributions, flavors, or brands. All of them are Linux. Okay, till date, there are huge number, but officially there are 300 plus as per the book. All right, so Linux. All right, so how many are there? Let's try to go and show you. So Linux. Uh, flavors in Linux. Yeah, there's a very nice image. This is from the Wikipedia. So click on this image. These many. And if you look at this from 1992 till date, till 2024, how many operating systems, how many Linux flavors are there? You can see that. Okay. So for example, every operating system, if you look, either it would be originated from a base flavor of operating system, base Linux, either it is from Debian or it would be either from the Red Hat. Okay. So Red Hat is a very big open source company. Okay, so who are known for offering the best support. And if you look at this, since it is an open source, everyone takes the code and they tune it as per the requirement. For example, here, okay, Red Hat is an open source and they released an enterprise software. That means if you want to use my operating system and if you want support, then you need to use my Red Hat Enterprise Linux. And if you look at this, there is another company called as CentOS, which has cloned. When you say clone is nothing but copied the code, okay? And then they started redistributing it. And for example, there are a couple of people like Elastic, they copied the code. Don't use the word copy, they cloned the code and they rebranded it. Likewise, you can see 300 plus editions of Linux flavors. And if you ask me, you take any number of distributions, either they are from either they are from Debian or Fedora. Okay, you need to understand this point. Okay, Linux majorly from either one. Okay, it would be Red Hat or CentOS. Okay, okay. So either it would be from Red Hat and either it would be from Debian. Okay, you take any operating system that would be either from Fedora or from the Ubuntu. But you take any organizations, so you see majority of the times either it would be Red Hat or CentOS. CentOS. So in order to use Red Hat, you need to pay, and to use CentOS, you don't have to pay. Both of them are clone. Even though CentOS is a clone from Red Hat, if you're using Red Hat at enterprise, you need to pay. But Manu, you said that if you want to use Red Hat or if you want to use open source, you don't have to pay. I never said it is free to use. Okay. So here, if you see free to use, the answer is may or may not be. Okay. If someone says open source is free to use, that's not 100% true. It may or may not be true. Okay. CentOS need to pay for subscription, need to pay for support. No support. It's just a clone, no support. You can directly use. You don't have to pay anyone. Okay. I'll ask you one question. Okay. So when choosing any product, what parameters do you choose? Irrespective of the cost. So I'll give you one example. There is an X brand. Okay, you want to buy some sport shoes, X brand, and as a part of your exercise or for running or for playing football, you want to buy some shoes, and you bought the shoes from the X brand. You bought the shoes and you went and used it for a day and came back saying that the size is not good or the comfort of the shoes when I'm running or walking is not good. I do not want it. The moment the moment the customer says to the shopkeeper, if the person who is the supervisor in the shop, if he says that, sorry sir, I think that is not the genuine reason, we cannot accept it. He says that I didn't even use it, I'm not feeling comfortable, it's a waste of money. Then he says that, sir, my manager stays 30 miles away from me, so we need to send it to him for his examination. We need to review the shoes, and then after he says it looks good, then he has to send it back to the company or the dealer or the distribution, and the distributor has to say whether it has to be replaced or whether it has to be returned or there is a refund or not. He'll ask you to go and come back after a week. He go back and after a week, and he says that, sorry sir, we don't return. You need to be with these shoes only. The shoes were again given back to the customer. This is X brand. For example, let's assume Nike. You bought the same shoes, okay, and because of some XYZ reason, you bought the shoes and you didn't like it, and you went to the Nike showroom and says that I think the comfort of the shoes is not as per my expectation, and I'm not comfortable with the shoes. I'm looking for a refund. Okay, or I'm looking for running, but these shoes are not designed for running. What best can you do? Sir, we are okay with anything. Customer satisfaction is important. If you want a full refund, we can. But whatever you want in the showroom, we can give it to you in return of this right now. The customer is very happy and he bought another pair of shoes by giving exchange, and he took the shoes and he's very happy. Now, out of these two, okay, the X brand shoes are not costly. Okay, and these shoes are little expensive. So in this situation, which one do you use? Which one do you prefer when you're looking things at a perspective in a product management side? Which shoes has more better market advantage? Anyone? Anyone?
Nike.
Okay. Anyone else? But it's costly.
Yeah, but it's refundable.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. I could see the answers. Everyone says Nike, 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 right? Yes. Whenever you're choosing a product, not just money, you'll also look at how better the customer support is offered. When enterprises are selecting any sort of products, the very first thing that they look at it is what is the support that they are offering. Okay. So if a product is very good, but the customer support is very bad, no one buys the product even though it is good. Okay, so customer support is the very key role in making sure the success of the product lasts for a long time. Do you know the reason why AWS is one of the market leader in the industry from last 18 years? Customer support. You go and say them, I'm not happy with the product. You go and say them, this is not bad. This is not good. they'll come back with an engineer who is highly experienced. They'll make sure you'll be happy, or they'll try to educate you in a way where you can use the product. They'll try to help you to build things. Even they are ready to exchange to make sure you do things in a correct way. Okay, so that much extent Amazon has extended in support. Okay, and that's also one of the reason why a lot of companies adopt AWS Cloud. Okay, again, all the three cloud providers offer the similar type of support, but AWS has the very best customer support. Okay, and yes, in that space, Red Hat Enterprise, Red Hat Linux, or Red Hat Linux, or it's also referred as RHEL, stands for Red Hat Enterprise Linux. It's one of the highly used, okay, operating system in the entire Linux ecosystem. So for example, if you're having 1000 servers in your organization, and out of that 300 are prod, 100 are pre-prod, and 250 are dev. Okay, they don't use all the 300 Red Hat servers because of the cost. Okay, so even though there is no licensing involved here, okay, I want to show you how Red Hat licensing work, Red Hat subscriptions work. They don't use the word license, they go away subscription. You can use the Linux for free, you can use the Red Hat for free, but the reason why people use Red Hat is whenever they are having any challenges. Okay, for example, you're running an application and the application is giving better bad performance when you're running on 7.2 or 8.2 version of Linux, and you feel application is good, but there is some issue in the there are some settings in the operating system of Red Hat that is making this. Okay, you can reach the Red Hat enterprise support. Okay, for example, what support modes does it has? Okay. Red Hat subscription cost, not now. Where can I find the cost? They have changed it. Give me a minute. Yeah, we go. For example, you just want to use the Red Hat Enterprise Linux, okay? And you need to pay $350 per year, okay? But you don't get any sort of support. For example, you want to use it in a data center on some hypervisor, you need to pay 2,500 rupees per year. But you're also going to get a support. For example, it's not a server. For example, companies like consultation firms, if they use okay, so for example, if you are using computers instead of Windows computers, if you are using Linux computers, Red Hat Linux computers, a lot of companies even issues Red Hat based operating systems to their users or their engineers as a part of their laptop issuance. So if you're using that, you just need to pay $179. And here you don't have to pay based on number of CPUs, or you don't have to pay based on number of users who are using it. Okay, and if you're running SAP solutions on the top of it, you need to pay 750 because you're making money out of it. And to offer support in this way, you need to pay 1759. And if you're running this on the top of IBM Power Little Edition, you need to pay this much. Okay, and again, there are also support models. So for example, I would like to show you Red Hat subscription value. Okay, so whether you want around the clock support, that means you want out of these 500 servers, you want premium support. When you took premium support 24/7, that means all 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, you'll get a support. Again, in that support, whether you want chat support or call support or WebEx based support, based on that, you need to pay the subscription cost. So since the production and pre-production servers are very much costly, they go with Red Hat. Okay, by paying the premium support or gold support. There are a lot of varieties. Okay, So you also have another operating system, which is a clone, which is a copy. Okay. So of Red Hat, it's called as a CentOS. Okay. So because even if some issue comes on dev or QA, we can resolve itself, and it's not a pressing issue. It will never be a pressing issue. So we don't go with this. So majority of the places you see this kind of approach when they are applying for licensing, not licensing, when they are going for the subscriptions. This way you can save cost. All right. All right, guys. But if Linux is this much important, how can I learn Linux? That's very important. How can I learn Linux? Okay, how can I learn Linux? Let's get started. So if you're having Linux laptop, okay, if you're having a Linux laptop, that's one way. But you won't get all features of it. Or you can install Oracle Box on your computer. And run Linux on it. This is one way. And you can use Katacoda or Keller Coda, where online Linux terminals. These are online Linux terminal. These three are not much close to real time. Okay, since this training is 100% real time and job oriented, just like how in organizations we use Linux servers, we'll create a server on AWS Cloud and learn on it. Okay, but to do all this, what should I know? What should I do? Okay, all you need to do is you just need to have an AWS account. Okay, so AWS offers free AWS account with services that can be used till 1 year account creation. Okay, you don't have to pay anything to get an account on AWS. AWS offers you a free account, okay, that can be created, and where if you follow the instructions that I'm going to pass during the session, you don't have to pay a single penny. Okay, but you should be ready to pay 300 to 500 rupees per month till the completion of the training. Okay, so that's the best thing. AWS offers you a free account. You can avail most of the services for free. Again, when I say free, there are some terms and conditions. We'll talk about that later. And creation of account needs a valid credit or debit card. Okay, but if you don't have a if you don't have a credit card, use debit. But the preferred option is credit card. If you are having a credit card in less than 1 day, less than 1 day, you can activate. Okay, accounts get activated. Okay, and for this, all you need is a valid email and credit or debit card details. That's it, and we can get started. So the very important question that I got from a lot of people is this one. Let me try to open it. So I'm having my, what are the laptop requirements in order to do the course? That's a very nice question. Laptop requirements to pursue this course. Any Windows, Linux or Mac. Okay. Anything is fine. No special requirements. All I need is you should be comfortable. Okay, so because in cloud we are not going to run anything locally like servers or networking devices. Everything will consume on cloud. So you should use a computer where you should feel comfortable without any lag. Okay, so preferably minimum 8 GB RAM and i5 plus processor, i5 plus above i5 processor. That's it. Okay, apart from that, there is no requirement. And can I use office laptop? A lot of people are asking this. Okay, can I use my office laptop? Okay, can I use an office laptop? So yeah, that you need to check with your company. Okay, but if you ask me in general, can I use my office laptop or not? A lot of companies encourages, but the only thing is you cannot connect to certain servers when you are connected to the VPN. So 90% of the time you can if your Argo is this, ensure you are not on VPN. If you're not able to install anything, any tools due to the admin access, your IT team should help you. Okay. In the past, a lot of companies encourage us learning things. So yeah, if your company encourages, you can. In the unlikely event, all we do is, okay, we'll install VS Code. What is VS Code? We'll talk about it. We'll install Git Bash. That's it. Apart from that, we are not going to install anything. All of them are productivity tools. That means tools which are going to increase the productivity of the employee, which are a green rated application. So the answer is yes, unless until your companies put some restrictions from you learning something external, but 90% of the times you should be able to access. Okay. And what if I don't have a laptop? This is a very unlikely thing. The minimum expectation is you should have a laptop. But what if you don't have a laptop and if you are someone who is in the phase of struggling, I don't have a laptop then? Okay. And if you're then in this case, either you can buy the laptop, buy a laptop as per your budget. I would prefer you going with pre-owned. That means which is already used computer, or rent it for 3 months. Okay, so if you're in the financial crunch, you can also rent Windows laptops for 3 months, where they charge 3 to 4,000 per month. So within less than 10,000, you can practice it for 3 months and you can return if you're really in a financial crunch or where you don't have the capital. Okay, these three are the options. Okay, so yeah, this is one thing. And I would like to create an AWS account because we are going to learn everything on the top of AWS account. How can I create an AWS account? All you need is to have a valid email address. Okay, console, AWS console. Just type AWS console. Click on the first link that comes up, AWS Management Console. This is the place where you log into the AWS console. Okay, so as a part of the AWS free tier, what all they give, everything they're taking. So this is an account where you get the services for 1 year free. And this account is always free. You don't have to pay for the account, but you can use the account for all the services up to 12 years. And compute is one of the service for running your servers. They're offering you 750 hours of service. Again, not everything that you can run. You can either run on T2 or T3 micro. What is T2? What is T3? We'll see that later. 5 GB of storage you can use and 750 hours of database that you can run. 25 GB of DynamoDB you can use. Okay. So, and Redshift, lot of other things we can use like this. Okay. There are some things saying that you need to use only this. You only need to use this. You only need to use this. Like that, there are some restrictions, but we'll talk about all these restrictions in detail. But if you follow my tips and techniques, you can avail most of them for free. So if you want to create an account, all you need to do is, okay, let me go console.aws console, just type here's sorry. So here, all you need to do is create an account for free. And then you need to enter the email address. For example, I would say uh, DevOps with AWS. Okay, this email address is not there. Okay, and the account name is DevOps. Okay, you can give any name. You need to click verify email address. If that is a valid email address, you will get an email. Okay, so since I already have an AWS account, I'm gonna show you how it works. Okay, so I have created a documentation for that. Come here. Okay, you need to click the free tier account, and then you need to enter the email address, preferably Gmail, along with the name, and then verify your email address. You will get an one-time password saying that in order to use this, you need to verify, you need to enter the one-time password, and then it asks you to configure your own password. You need to enter a password that you need to remember. Use something that is that you can remember. Don't use password 1, password 2. Okay, and then you need, as I mentioned, you need to have a valid email address and credit card or debit card details. Enter your name as per the name that you see on the credit or debit card, and enter the phone number. If you are from India, use +91. If you're on states, use +1, and then select the region, your address. This is the billing details. Okay, and enter the postal code and click on create an account. Okay, now what you would see it ask you to enter whether you're a human or not. Okay, so you need to prove whether you're a human by clicking some puzzle, and then once it's done, you need to enter the one-time password. If you're in states, you don't get any one-time password for credit card authentication or authorization, but if you're in India, you would get an authentication and authorization. And after that, they'll ask you, do you have a PAN card? Prefer saying no. And then you see 3 options. AWS also offers support plan. In organizations, you see this business support plan. Okay, where you need to pay $100 per month for the support that AWS offers. But if you are an independent developer, people typically choose this freelancers for getting minimal support from AWS. But if you don't want any AWS support for any technical related things, you can go with the basic support plan, which is absolutely free. So in your case, select this because I am there to help you. Select this. Okay, and then all you need to do is, that's it, click an account. Okay, and complete the setup. Boom, you will get an email confirmation saying this your account is created. And once your account is created, it doesn't mean that your account is ready to use. Your account has to go for activation. It typically takes less than 1 day, but if you're using credit card, it should happen in less than 1 hour to get activated. That's it. Yeah, your account is activated. And to validate, you need to type console.aws. Okay, sign into the console, enter your Gmail address. Just go with the default. What is this root user? What is this IAM user? We'll talk about them later. But for now, just click on that and then enter the password that you have selected. That's it. Boom, you're inside it. Okay, so we'll create all the servers, everything on the top of it. From day 3 itself, we'll start creating a server and we'll try to work everything on the top of a real live servers. Okay, we'll learn everything on the top of the real live environment. Okay, and that's it. That's for today. And I don't have anything much. Just a quick announcement. The meeting link remains the same. There won't be any changes. Okay, the meeting link remains the same. And till further notice, there won't be any changes. And the meeting link that you're using, please use the same meeting link. And whatever the details that I have given, please use the same thing where you can find the session recording. And batch timings remain the same. If you're joining from states, Sunday to Friday, 7:30 to 9 p.m. Eastern. And if you're joining from India, Monday to Saturday, morning 6 to 7:30, and meeting link remains the same. Okay, you can find all the session recordings Okay, so in the same link that you are using to attend. So for example, if this is the link that you're using, you can see the session recording here itself. Alternatively, you can also use this as I mentioned. Okay, you can find all the session recordings here. This link I have already published with you. Use B57. Okay, or alternatively, you can copy the link and click it here. You should be able to see all the session recordings. Okay, so you don't have to wait. It takes less than 1 hour for me to upload the video, and you can watch it in less than 1 hour. Okay, in case if you miss any session recording or anything, just feel free to go with the session recording, and you can always reach me for any sort of questions, and you have my contact number. Feel free to reach me. As I mentioned, meeting link remains the same. So yeah, that's for today, and we're gonna meet tomorrow in the same time, same session, same time, and see you tomorrow, and we are good. And if you are having any questions, I'm ready to address them.